What's up, nation? What's going on, everybody? It is Thursday, January 8th. We've got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, there's some breaking news this morning. Mike McDaniels, we'll get into that. Talking about head coaching vacancies. There's a lot of them right now, too. What best jobs or what best head coaches are currently available? Where do some of these guys end up going? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how taking bad advice can potentially derail everything you've worked so hard for. But to kick off today's show, we're going to chat real quick about Rashee Rice, because Rashee Rice finding himself in a little bit of trouble again. This cat just doesn't know how to keep himself out of trouble right now. And again, he is innocent until proven guilty. But in the eye of the NFL, they don't really care when it comes to suspensions. And Rashee Rice already had a suspension last season for his role in an altercation on the highway, where unfortunately some drag racing, some street racing was taking place. Rashee Rice caused an accident, and he finds himself in a bit of trouble. Now, he is still going to have his day in court for some of that mess. But now, if you haven't heard, I don't remember if it was I don't think it's current girlfriend, an ex-girlfriend, a woman who he is tied to, posted yesterday on Instagram pictures and videos of herself with bruises, black eye, essentially saying that Rashee Rice has been domestically abusing her. So now the NFL is going to have another thing to look into when it comes to Rashee Rice. And he's already dealt with a pretty significant suspension for off-field conduct. So you got to wonder what type of suspension will be coming next. And when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs, you got to wonder what their team is going to look like to start 2026, right? Because the Kansas City Chiefs, Rashee Rice could be facing another suspension. Travis Kelce, we still don't know at this point in time whether or not he's going to be retiring. Patrick Mahomes, no telling exactly when he's going to be back, if he'll be back from his ACL tear to begin the season, or if it's going to be a few games in, or if it's going to be the middle of the season, or if we're looking at a potential time frame that is closer to a year, and how healthy is he once he returns. Matt Nagy, he's getting some head coaching interviews. So for Matt Nagy, does he end up leaving? So the Kansas City Chiefs team on offense especially could look vastly different to begin 2026 than it has in quite some time. And Kansas City is going to have to figure out a way around that. But when it comes to Rashee Rice, this is the second thing that, yes, he's not guilty at this point. There's no telling whether or not these accusations are real. We don't know any of that as of yet. We don't know any of that at this point in time. But I would be willing to bet that if the NFL, police, law enforcement, the Kansas City Chiefs, whoever dives into this, I would be willing to bet that if they find that Rashee Rice actually did have something to do with what is being posted on social media, that Rashee Rice could end up being suspended for the entirety of the 2026 season. The entirety of it. He just got 6 games, right? 6 reduced to 4, was it? So he was already suspended, had it slightly reduced. There's no way that if the NFL, law enforcement, Kansas City Chiefs find that Rashee Rice had something to do with this and ends up being found guilty or has charges pressed against him, whatever it may be, there's no telling how long Rashee Rice is going to be out for. Rashee Rice, to me, could potentially miss the entire 2026 season. Mars, what'd he do? I'll go back over it again real quick. So recently, over the last couple of days, a woman that Rashee Rice apparently has had or still has a relationship with has been posting photos, videos of potential domestic abuse. And again, from a legal standpoint, I am not saying that he's guilty. From a legal standpoint, I am not saying that he is guilty of anything as of this point in time, because that would not be right for me to do. But from an NFL standpoint, they don't care if you're guilty or not. They will make the post. They'll make the post. They'll make a decision on him. They'll make a decision on him. Chiefs are going to potentially be in a little bit of trouble to open 2026. Potentially no Patrick Mahomes, potentially no Rashee Rice, potentially no Travis Kelce. Their offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, where does he land? He's getting some job interviews at this point in time. You know what a situation like Rashee Rice makes me appreciate even more? And you can have the argument all you want to about LeBron James and his status is the greatest of all time when it comes to basketball. You can have an argument about whether or not you think LeBron James is a guy who is a whiner, who is a complainer, who flops, who does all of these things. You can argue about those things when it comes to LeBron James as an athlete as much as you want to. But when you see things like Rashee Rice happen, I think you have to appreciate just how outstanding LeBron James is as a person. That you have to look at the fact that the guy's been in the NBA for over 20 years, was drafted as the number 1 overall pick as an 18-year-old, and the only thing that he has ever done is had a positive impact on his community. He's been with the same woman since high school. He's never had any issues pop up of having affairs. He's never had any issues pop up of domestic issues. He's never had anything negative in the press about him. He has sent hundreds of kids to college. He has revitalized the way kids go to school in Ohio and receive their education. And you get a guy that's basically universally hated for who he is as a basketball player. I wouldn't say universally hated because there's tons of people who love LeBron James, but you get a guy that is hated by a mass amount of people as a basketball player, but it makes you appreciate those athletes even more when you look at the fact that you've got a guy like Rashee Rice who just can't stay out of trouble. You've got a guy like Kareem Hunt, Ray Rice, Michael Jordan, even as an athlete, dealt with issues outside of the sport. And I would be willing to bet that if Michael Jordan played in a time where social media was much larger than it was back in the 90s, I would be willing to bet that Michael Jordan would have a much more negative perspective about himself, especially when it comes to the retirement, right? Because one of the reasons that people say that he retired and went to play baseball for the time that he did is because the NBA, let's say the NBA had knowledge of Michael Jordan and gambling issues, which he had gambling issues, but whether or not it was on the NBA or just gambling issues in general, there's talk, there is people who have dove into the fact that they feel like the NBA was at a point where they basically told Michael Jordan, like, we're going to have to suspend you, and if we do that, that's not going to look great for the sport. So retire for a year, go play baseball. We'll use this as the cover up, and then we don't have to suspend you, and then you can come back. Tiger Woods as well. Great point in the chat. Tiger Woods was the epitome of golf, was the guy, the height of golf, and really what made golf popular, or more popular, I should say, in the U.S. And now Tiger Woods finds himself on Thanksgiving years ago getting into an accident because he was essentially chased out of his house with a golf club by his then wife because he had cheated. And then Tiger Woods all of a sudden sees a ton of bad press. So that's another good example of an athlete at the height of his career who just can't make good decisions on the field, on the court, or they can't make good decisions off the field, off the links, off the court. And there's more of them as well, right? There are more athletes who have had off-field issues. But it really goes back, again, to appreciating the guys who do it right. Appreciating the guys who do it right. And if you have like a young child like I do, Kareem, Lance Armstrong, Greg Hardy, Lance Armstrong, a big one there as well. When you have a younger kid like I do who loves sports and looks up to different athletes, and I've seen I forget who said it. And if you recognize it and you remember, let me know in the chat. But someone basically said that I'm an athlete, I'm not a role model. I don't get paid to be a role model for young kids. That, at the end of the day, is not what I'm interested in or worried about. I forget who said it, but there was an athlete who said it. And I would argue that with you. Is it what you get paid millions of dollars for? No, it's not. But at the end of the day, you have chosen to go into a field where you're going to be highly criticized and constantly in the spotlight. And the choices that you make and how you act are going to affect the millions of people who watch you, because they're going to see that, especially young, impressionable kids. They're going to see that and they're going to say to themselves, oh, this is how you are allowed to act if you're a kid. Callie hits the nail on the head. With power comes responsibility. Charles Barkley said that, apparently. Okay, Charles Barkley. With power comes responsibility. And as an athlete, I believe that you have some sort of a responsibility to handle yourself appropriately, like LeBron James has for his entire career. So I do believe that you should hold yourself accountable, and you should also make sure that you're living a life that kids, when they see, and you know what, people, you can do what you want to behind closed doors. I'm not telling you that you can't live your life in a way that you feel fit. Don't hurt other people, and keep what you do behind closed doors behind closed doors. But you have to know that as an athlete, there is a really good chance people are going to find out about it. There is a really good chance that people are going to find out about it when you do things. I mean, heck, even a guy like Derek Jeter in New York, the epicenter of sports, the epicenter of, you could say, the U.S. and even the world. OAG finding the exact quote. I'll come back to that in just a second. Derek Jeter in New York for every single year of his career, for the most part, stayed out of the spotlight. There were some things in the news about his relationships with women and a little promiscuous, and how if he would have a woman over and she would stay, that when she would wake up the next morning, there would be a gift basket or something like that. Again, I think that's, you do what you want to do. Live your life. I'm not one to judge Derek Jeter for how many women he slept with while he was the shortstop for the New York Yankees. But he was never, he never found himself in a position where a woman accused him of domestic violence or things of that nature. So whatever Derek Jeter did to live his life behind closed doors, he did a pretty decent job of keeping those things behind closed doors. And then he went to the ballpark and he had a Hall of Fame career, right? Do what you need to behind closed doors. Live your life. Don't hurt other people. Don't put yourself or others in harm's way. Make good choices. And OEG with the exact quote, "I'm not a role model. Just because I dunk a basketball doesn't mean I should raise your kids." I don't want Charles Barkley or any athlete to raise my kids. That's my job as an adult. But what I want you to do is handle yourself appropriately, because my kid watches a ton of sports, and young kids are extremely impressionable. And when they see you doing certain things, they're going to grow up thinking it's okay. Now, it's my job as an adult and as a parent to basically talk to my kid about how it's not okay to do that. And if you see these things and you see how players act, it's my job as a parent to acknowledge to my kid that that's not how you should carry yourself. So I understand that. But to basically say, I can dunk a basketball, so I'm not a role model, that's BS to me. That's BS. Because at the end of the day, you are a role model, and you chose to enter a profession where you are looked up to by kids. That's your choice. If you don't want that, then go be Charles from accounting. If you don't want that, then go sell insurance. If you don't want that, then go work in a factory. And nothing against any of those professions. But they're not in the limelight. They're not seen every day. They're not on the news. They're not on social media. Go do something where you're not criticized every single day by millions of people. Go do something else if you don't want that. It is what it is. And I mean, I think an important part of being a parent or in any type of a position where you have a voice is to make sure that you are giving good advice. You should not take bad advice. And as we transition into our next segment here, don't take bad advice. Damon Williams from Washington, unfortunately, has taken some very, very bad advice. And on Monday, we spent some time talking about the NIL era, because obviously right now, kind of into the college football playoffs, The transfer portal, it opened on January 2nd. There are tons of kids going in and out of the transfer portal, kids going to new schools, making changes in their lives. And if you haven't heard about it, Demond Williams is the quarterback at Washington. And when Jed Fish went to Washington to take the head coaching job, Demond Williams transferred with him to Washington. And Demond Williams is seen as a kid that has Heisman potential, and he has the potential to lead Washington to a berth in the college football playoffs if he is surrounded with the right players. Demond Williams is a solid quarterback. Well, the other day, Demond Williams announces on Instagram that he is entering the transfer portal. And it sounds like Lane Kiffin and LSU have their hands in on this transfer that may or may not end up happening. Well, the bad news for Demond Williams is that just a couple of weeks ago, he signed a NIL contract with the University of Washington that would pay, I believe it was $3 million a year, if I remember correctly. It might have been more, it might have been a little bit more than that. But he signed a contract with UW to stay there for another year, $3 million in NIL. And then just a couple of weeks later, he announces on Instagram that he's going into the transfer portal, completely catching everybody off guard. And probably the worst thing about the way he announced it is he announced it while on campus at the University of Washington. They were having a vigil for a student athlete that had passed away. And his teammates and coaches were at that vigil showing their respects. And he announced it on Instagram while that was happening. So first and foremost, the announcement itself, telling absolutely nobody, then announcing that he is entering the transfer portal while there is a vigil going on campus that his teammates and coaches are at. And then they see this post from him on Instagram during and after. They're like, whoa, what's going on? Like, he just signed an NIL deal. Why is he leaving? Well, there's a couple of issues at play here. Number one, it sounds like there has been some sort of tampering because based on some of the information that has come out, it appears that Lane Kiffin and or LSU officials reached out to Demond Williams after he had signed that contract. He was not in the portal, and technically coaches from another school should not have been reaching out to him. So first and foremost, that's an issue. That's more of an LSU issue than a Demond Williams issue. But come to find out, this contract that Demond Williams signed has a stipulation in it that he is not allowed to have contact with other schools and he is not allowed to enter the transfer portal. This is a binding legal document telling him that he cannot do exactly what he just did. Now, college athletes can have agents now. And it sounds like Demond Williams, the agent that he had when he signed that deal with the University of Washington, he moved on from and hired a different agent that may or may not have known the full deals of the contract that he had just signed. Now Demond Williams finds himself in quite the pickle because the University of Washington and the Big Ten have basically said they are going to hold him accountable. And this contract he signed is legally binding, and they're not letting him out of it. So the University of Washington actually has to allow him the opportunity to enter the transfer portal. They have to release him into the transfer portal, and they have at this point said they are not doing that. So now Damon Williams finds himself stuck at a school that really doesn't want him anymore. And teammates that he stabbed in the back. And teammates that found out that he was transferring or entering the transfer portal while they were at a vigil for a student athlete who had passed away. They find out from their quarterback, their teammate, their captain, their leader, that he is transferring. Parents, show this to your kids. If your kids don't watch this show with you, this is a great time. This is a great segment, a great clip for you to show them. Make better choices. And when you're younger, surround yourself with people that help you make good choices, not bad choices. Because Damon Williams finds himself in an absolute mess now because I believe he hired an agent that helped him make a very, very poor decision that is now going to result in a legal battle, that is going to result in him potentially returning to a team that doesn't even want him, to teammates that don't even want him, and now a school that holds his future in his hands, because if they don't release him to the transfer portal, he has to stay at Washington. And Dweezy, that's a great point. There will be more similar situations like this during the current offseason and obviously seasons beyond. Absolutely, there will. And that's why the NCAA, who continues to fumble everything and is maybe one of the most inept and I don't know what the word, I don't want to say criminal. That might be a little tough. But the NCAA is one of the most inept and corrupt organizations in America. The NCAA can't get anything right. They try to sweep things under the rug. Then they don't know how to conduct an investigation. They don't know how to conduct fair investigations. The NCAA is basically at the epicenter of poor decisions in college sports. They don't know how to realistically run college athletics because they're an organization that at the end of the day is more interested in putting as much money in their pockets as possible. And it's part of the reason why that college athletes for the longest time couldn't benefit from name, image, likeness, NIL money like they do today, because the NCAA wanted all that money. They didn't want to share with college athletes. They didn't want to pay college athletes. They didn't want to have to worry about that. So for years, they did nothing about it except continue to stuff their pockets with millions and billions of dollars and profit off of 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds. And they didn't spend enough time trying to figure out how to fix that and be fair to everybody. So then college athletes took it into their own hands and they started trying to unionize like the players at Northwestern, and they started going to court and getting courts involved and being able to pay these kids because schools were profiting off of them for years and years and years. And the NCAA was reactive to the entire situation. And when you're reactive to every single situation in life, you're going to find yourself trying to play catch up and then fix things with a Band-Aid that probably needs stitches. And the NCAA actually found themselves in a situation where they were trying to fix an amputation with a Band-Aid. That's how bad it was. So now the NCAA finds themselves in a situation where the NCAA landscape, especially in college football, has turned into the Wild West, where kids are entering the transfer portal because either A, they're seeking a better outcome and better situation for themselves, or B, the school that they are at has told them they no longer want them because they're no longer needed, or C, they're chasing money. And the NCAA has absolutely no control over the situation now. So they're going to have to be reactive once again. And that's where you find yourself in trouble. Instead of being proactive and trying to help fix the situation as it's happening, they're waiting until things like this with Damon Williams to step in and try to figure it out. And it's too late. Problems are already happening. And you're right, it's going to continue to happen until the NCAA steps in and tries to fix the situation. If you're looking for inept leaders, the NCAA is one of the first organizations that you can take a look at and essentially say they've got no idea what they are doing. The pulse of the nation on this subject. Don't take bad advice. Pulse of the nation. What are we thinking in the chat right now? Mike, what's going on? Anna, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Make your choices and stand by them. You should definitely stand by your choices. Absolutely. And that's something Damon Williams did not do here. He made a choice to sign a contract with the University of Washington that would pay him money to be their starting quarterback. And then he decided no, because he thinks the grass is greener at LSU, which it may be, and he's going to, I'm sure, get paid more money. And it could end up being a better opportunity, and he could end up helping lead LSU to a national championship, where at Washington he may not be able to do that. But I mean, Washington has played in a national championship game more recently than what LSU has, if we're just being honest. If we're just being honest, if you want to hate on Washington, they've played in a national championship game way more recently than what LSU has. A big yikes from several people in the chat. NCAA fixing something. What are they fixing, though? Are they fixing how to fix this, or are they fixing the fixes in college football? That made about as much sense as the NCAA. My enemy, you're very welcome. Mike, what throws me off is something my grandfather taught me. If a man kept his word or commitment, what else will he walk away or out of? I think one thing that these college athletes are going to have to remember, and I had a conversation about this the other day. So a guy that I've coached with, my son and his son are very good friends. They hang out all the time. He was a defensive end at Indiana. He played at the high school that my kids are going to end up going to. He has coached my son before. He helps coach the defensive lineman at this high school. So he's a knowledgeable football guy. Him and I were having a conversation a couple of weeks ago about the NFL and the NCAA. And we were kind of talking about the NIL, and he was talking about like some of his former teammates and like what would have happened if they were making money and stuff like that. And the one thing that I told him about is I think at the end of the day that the people that are going to be burned the most by this era of college football are not necessarily the players, even though the players will. It's not necessarily like college coaches or college programs, but they will. The people that could end up being burned by this era of college football the most is the NFL. Because the NFL is now trying to bring in a ton of kids, which they're technically adults. They're kids to most of us. They're trying to bring in these young adults that at the college level over the last few years haven't learned anything about how to become not just a better athlete, but a better person. And these NFL teams are going to have to sort through the mess of, well, hey, so-and-so, why in the world did you feel like that you needed to transfer from a school 6 times? Or when Damon Williams decides to come out, hey, Damon, what happened in this whole situation? Why did you sign a contract with the University of Washington and then 2 weeks later try to get out of that contract by entering the transfer portal to go to LSU? And why should we trust you as our starting quarterback? You're going to have guys coming into the league that made more in college than they will for their first NFL contracts. You're going to have guys coming into college who now, over the course of the last 4, 5, 6 years, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, had all the leverage as a college athlete. And they're coming into a situation where they don't have the leverage anymore. And I can promise you, some of these NFL coaches are not going to give a crap how much money you made in NIL as a college athlete. They're not going to give a crap how many followers you have, how many brand deals you have. They're not going to give a crap about any of that. You know what they want? They want grown men who can come to their organization, play football, stay out of trouble, be good teammates, and help them win games. That's all they care about. That is all they care about. And a lot of these kids will not learn that in the NCAA now. And the other day when we had this big conversation about NIL money and had this big conversation about transferring and things like that, I supported and defended NIL deals for college athletes, because if schools and companies are going to make millions of dollars off of your likeness, you deserve a part of that. You absolutely do. But these kids need to be taught how to deal with those things. And these kids need to be taught how to handle these situations, because these kids need to grow up way faster than they have in the past. And it goes back to the last segment. Don't take bad advice. The NCAA needs to step in, and they need to put some sort of a policy in place that puts good people as agents for these college athletes. The NFL has something in place. You have to pass an exam. You have to be a certified NFL agent. I cannot call up a college kid and say, hey, I want to represent you right now. I can't do that. I probably could if I wanted to, but I can't. I have to go through an exam, and I have to go through certifications to become an NFL agent, because the NFL wants to make sure that the agents that these teams are dealing with know how to handle players. That has to happen in college football as well. That absolutely has to happen in college football. These kids are putting themselves in a position where they're making decisions that are going to affect them and their career for the rest of their lives. And some of these kids are going to make such stupid and poor decisions that they are going to tank any chance that they had at having a successful NFL career. So these college advisors, these college agents are going to have to be the ones to step in and help these kids make decisions and learn about how you make good decisions and grow up in the spotlight. It is more important than ever that the NCAA steps in and figures out this situation. Because at the end of the day, yes, the NFL is going to have an issue with this, but it's the kids. It's the young adults that are being set up for failure because you're not stepping in to help these young adults. I keep saying kids. I want to switch that to young adults. You're not stepping in and doing your job. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds are not smart enough to handle the situations that they are in. Let me rephrase that. 90% of those young adults are not smart enough. And it's not because they don't have the intelligence to do it. It's because they've never been taught. There are some college athletes that come into college that have no family support. There are some kids that come into college that were raised by a single mom or maybe had been in foster care. There are some kids that come into college that were raised by a grandma or a grandpa or an aunt or an uncle that maybe slept on the couch of a friend's house more nights than not. It's the world we live in. It's unfortunate, but those kids never had the guidance that they needed to be successful in life. And there are some that just have such a good head on their shoulders that they find a way to make it work and they find a way to be successful. And kudos to kids like that and young adults like that. But I'd be willing to bet that some of those young adults still had some sort of a positive impact around them, whether it be a teacher, a principal, big brothers and big sisters, if they participated in that program, if they did extracurriculars at the Y, if they had a friend's parents who watched after them, if they had coaches that helped them. Some of them have some sort of a positive influence, but there's a lot of kids that don't. And there's a lot of kids that were so good at athletics that coaches and parents and teachers just let them continuously slide because of how good they were. And then now they get to college, and now in college, they have all of this responsibility of millions of dollars, and they don't know how to handle it because they weren't taught by anybody to handle it. And if you're not taught by anybody to handle it, then you find yourself in a position where you're trying to learn on the fly. And didn't I just say a couple of minutes ago that the worst thing the NCAA could have done through any of this is be reactive? It's the same thing for the young adults. You can't be reactive to the situation. And now they're going to go off to the NFL? Callie, yeah, they need massive guidance. They might be adults, but their brains aren't even fully developed. They need support with making big decisions. S. Bagnall, facts, maturity level is wish-washy for some of these college players. Yeah. And it's not just because they're college athletes. It's because they're just young, right? Like, how many of us made stupid decisions when we were young? Kelly, my niece is a D1 college softball player. She has amazing support. Even she has struggled with making decisions and just dealing with these major life changes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to say something, and I mean absolutely no disrespect to D1 college softball players or swimmers or JUCO kids or Division 3 or Division 2 or a majority of those kids and like your niece are never going to be under the scrutiny or be in the spotlight as much as some of these other kids. So you saying that your niece is a D1 softball player has had trouble adjusting to life, imagine just how much bigger that might be for a 19-year-old kid that's making $5, $6, $7, $8 million and who is on ESPN every single Saturday. Just imagine how much more difficult. And again, it's nothing against softball players, and it's nothing against other sports. It's nothing against different divisions of the NCAA or the NAIA or JUCO. It's nothing. But that just goes to show you that college in itself, and I could go on and on and on about this. I worked in higher education for 11 years? something like that, almost 12. Probably would have been more than that, probably closer to 13. I worked in higher, I was an instructor. I was a recruiter. I worked in admissions. I was an advisor. I was an associate director. I helped develop programs. I helped with curriculum. I literally have done everything that you could think of at the college level in higher education. And I could go on and on and on for years. And maybe I'll save this for my other channel, Higher Expectations. I could go on for years about how detrimental college is to kids if they don't have the right support. And that's for kids that barely graduated high school and they're trying to figure it out. It's for kids who have GEDs. It's for kids who were at the top of their class in grades and go on to Ivy League schools. College as a whole is difficult to figure out. It is difficult to maneuver. And when you don't have support around you, it's hard to figure out. It absolutely is. And I could go on about the mistakes that I made while I was in college. And I had good parents that supported me. And absolutely no offense to either of them, but neither of them went to college. And I didn't have any close family members that went to college either. So there were some things that they were also learning the same time that I was learning. And there were some things that it wasn't like, hey, watch out for this or be careful about that. So there were some situations I found myself in where I was like, oh, I didn't really expect this. And then to top it all off, I moved away at one point for college and I lived 2 hours from my parents. So the support they were offering me was the support over the phone. And there were some things that I just wouldn't even say out loud to my parents because I'm like, I don't want to bother them for this. Like, I'm an adult. I should be able to handle this myself. College just on its own is tough to figure out when you don't have people helping you figure it out. Now add in you're a athlete, a semi-professional athlete at this point. Let's be honest about it. You have to be an athlete. You have to be a student. It's a student athlete for a reason and not an athletic student. You're figuring out a ton of money process. You're figuring out being somebody that's in the news consistently every day. I have a year of eligibility remaining. Should I go back to school? LOL. TJ, technically I do as well. Technically, I also have a year of eligibility remaining. Brian, how many of us made good decisions at that age? Exactly, right? How many of us actually made good decisions? NIL is a gift and a curse for the fact that an amateur athlete can be paid compared to the schools profiting off of said athlete, but the evils behind it are much more, unfortunately. OEG, I 100% agree with you. Speaking of having good coaches and speaking of putting yourself in a position to succeed, the Monday after the NFL season ends is called Black Monday for a reason because of the potential firing of NFL head coaches. In season, we had the firings of Brian Daboll from the New York Giants and Brian Callahan from the Titans. And since the season has ended, the Raiders fired Pete Carroll, the Browns fired Kevin Stefanski, the Cardinals fired Jonathan Gannon, the Falcons fired Raheem Morris, the Ravens, out of nowhere seemingly, fired John Harbaugh, who you could argue is a top 10, maybe even top 5 coach in the NFL. And then this morning, after multiple reports for weeks that Mike McDaniels was not going anywhere, the Dolphins fire Mike McDaniels. The Dolphins, the Ravens, the Giants, the Titans, the Falcons, the Cardinals, the Browns, and the Raiders all have head coaching vacancies now. John Harbaugh is going to get a head coaching gig. Let's be honest with it. John Harbaugh is going to be a head coach somewhere. And the firing of Mike McDaniels this morning kind of makes sense because one of the GMs that apparently is a favorite for the Dolphins job has worked with John Harbaugh extensively. Also, their owner for Miami is a Michigan graduate. John Harbaugh and the Harbaughs have a tie to the University of Michigan. There was even a couple of times when Jim Harbaugh was the coach at Michigan that a lot of people thought, even when Mike McDaniels took the job 4 years ago, a lot of people thought it was going to be Jim Harbaugh. So Harbaugh at this point, John Harbaugh, seems like he could be a good fit in Miami, just based on that. Now, Miami probably has a little bit of work to do, so I think Harbaugh is going to go sit down and meet with them, but I don't think he's going to jump to just take the job right away. Because when you look, and we talked about this the other day, there are better opportunities out there than the Dolphins. And now with the Ravens, you got to wonder, where do the Ravens think they're going, right? Where do the Ravens think that they're going? What head coaching candidate is out there that the Baltimore Ravens truly feel like they are getting better with than John Harbaugh, who has won a Super Bowl in Baltimore, won multiple AFC titles, AFC North titles. I know Jim Harbaugh said that Jim Harbaugh thinks his brother is the best coach in the NFL. And that's how the Harbaughs are. The Harbaughs are the essential and the epitome of support within a family. Jim Harbaugh said he thinks John Harbaugh is the best coach in the NFL, but he hopes he goes to an NFC team. He hopes he goes to an NFC team. And those two have played a Super Bowl against each other, which is crazy, right? Do the Ravens really need a change, though? Brad mentions Ravens need to do something different. I think sometimes you look at a team and you say to yourself, we need to do something different. But do you need to do something different because something actually needs to be done different, or do you need to do something different for the sake of just doing something different? Which change can be good, but change for the sake of change is not always good. It's a Philly thing. I heard John Harbaugh was not ready to let go of one of his coordinators, so they had a conflict going on that led to his firing. That is accurate from the reports that I have read as well. Not any really, but Clint Kubiak. I mean, so let's talk about the head coaches that have been fired so far, and whether or not they could end up getting another head coaching opportunity. They should have won 12 games. Brad, I don't fully disagree with that, but I also feel like injuries played a big part in their season as well. I also feel like injuries were an issue, especially to Lamar Jackson. You were missing your quarterback for a few games, and he clearly was not healthy in some either. Mike McDaniels. I think Mike McDaniels is an offensive coordinator. I think he's going to get interviews for head coaching jobs, but if I am a team like the Detroit Lions, if I'm a team like the Washington Commanders, I am on the phone with Mike McDaniel's representation, getting him to my facility as quickly as possible for an offensive coordinator interview, and I'm making him one of, if not the highest paid coordinator in all of football. I think Mike McDaniels is going to get some head coaching consideration. I think he should do what Cliff Kingsbury did, though, and I think he should go be an offensive coordinator for a couple of years. If you're the Detroit Lions or the Washington Commanders, who Cliff Kingsbury just left, You are calling Mike McDaniel's agent. You are getting an interview set up as soon as Mike McDaniels will come to your facility. And while he is there, you are offering him the opportunity to be your offensive coordinator and to be paid more than any other coordinator in the entire NFL. That's exactly what you should do with Mike McDaniels, because he might not be head coach material. The Dolphins, they had some good things and they had some bad things. I think he can be a good NFL head coach, but I think he is such a good offensive mind and play caller that that's what he should be known for now, and he should stick with that for maybe a couple of years. John Harbaugh, he's going to be a head coach, and he's going to get his pick. The Dolphins, the Giants, the Titans, the Falcons, the Cardinals, the Browns, the Raiders are all going to be interested in John Harbaugh. I think the Dolphins moved on from Mike McDaniels just to get a shot at John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is probably going to interview in several different teams, and he's going to have his pick of those teams. TC, that is a great point. Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay, who just fired their offensive coordinator as well, I think Tampa Bay would be an excellent fit for Mike McDaniels as well. And he wouldn't really have to move that far. He's going from Miami to Tampa. John Harbaugh is going to get his pick. Brian Daboll, we have not heard a ton about Brian Daboll since his firing in season from the Giants. I think Brian Daboll could get some consideration as an offensive coordinator. I don't think he's going to be hired as a head coach anywhere. Raheem Morris. I don't think Raheem Morris got that fair of a shake in Atlanta, and I think a team will pick him up as a defensive coordinator fairly quickly. Brian Callahan, who was fired in season from Tennessee, I think he could get some looks as an offensive coordinator. Kevin Stefanski is going to get a head coaching job somewhere. There's talk that Green Bay, if they get knocked out of the first round, that they could move on from LaFleur right away, and that Kevin Stefanski could be a fit in Green Bay. There's been rumors about that. I don't think it happens, but Kevin Stefanski is going to land as a head coach somewhere. Absolutely. Pete Carroll should retire at this point. No offense to Pete Carroll. Will go down not only as one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, but one of the greatest coaches in football history for what he did at USC and for what he did in the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks. He should go down as one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. One of the very, 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 very limited coaches who can say that he won a national championship and a Super Bowl trophy is a coach. Jonathan Gannon, did I mention him? Maybe I didn't. Probably going to get a look as a defensive coordinator somewhere. But that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams. No, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams. That's 8 teams. That is 8 teams with a head coaching position that once they have a head coach in place, which could be 1, 2, or multiple of the names that we just talked about, once they have those positions in place, then offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators are going to start getting hired. Kyle, would you like Cliff Kingsbury with Detroit as an offensive coordinator? Absolutely, I would. I think Cliff Kingsbury is a great offensive mind as well. He is a guy that I actually rooted for. I didn't really think about it until my buddy brought it up to me, but when Michigan's head coaching job opened up, my buddy said to me, I want Cliff Kingsbury, who has time at Texas Tech as an NFL or as a college head coach and is a great recruiter, and I think is a really good offensive mind. I would have loved to have him in Michigan. Now, I'm thrilled with Kyle Whittingham as well. But I do think that Cliff Kingsbury should get a second shot because unfortunately Cliff Kingsbury was tied to Kyler Murray for his entire NFL coaching career. And because of that, I think maybe he should get another shot. I think maybe he should get another shot. I think Mike McDaniel should get another shot, but I would love to see him go be an offensive coordinator for 1, 2, maybe 3 years and then take a look at becoming an NFL head coach again. And I do think that it needs to be the right situation. I think he dealt with a lot of crap when it came to being tied to Tua and his concussion issues. I think he dealt with a lot of crap having Tyreek Hill on his team and kind of the circus that comes with Tyreek Hill. Eagles will be looking for an offensive coordinator as well. Absolutely. Yeah, it seems like Bucky Irving is leaving Tampa Bay from what I've seen. It seems like Bucky Irving will be leaving Tampa Bay. He kind of posted that that was going to happen. One thing I'm interested in knowing is whether or not, and I just looked over and noticed it, I don't expect super chats in these shows, but we do have super chats set up to appear at the bottom like they would during our normal live shows. And I don't know if it works or not because no one has sent one. If there's anyone out there that wants to donate 99 cents to the cause of helping me try to figure out whether or not the super chats are working, that would be awesome. If not, you don't have to. Or Rashad White. Did I say Bucky was leaving? I meant Rashad White. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not Bucky. Not Bucky Irving. Rashad White. If I said the wrong thing, I apologize. Rashad White is leaving. Bucky Irving is not. Bucky Irving will still be there. Bucky Irving will still be there. There was no super chats in the last session. There were milestone chats and new members. Those don't show up, but I might fix that. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to give you a heart attack there. That's my bad. TC donated $1. Let's see if it works. Okay, so TC donated $1. Nobody else needs to. Nobody else needs to. Let's see if it works. It might take a moment on the other side. Maybe it's broken, which is feasible. Let me restart the session and see if it pops up. It might be broken, or it might just take a minute. Sometimes that happens. What I could do is I could gift some memberships and see if that alert pops up. Let me gift 5 memberships to the community. That did show up. It is way too high. It is being cut off the screen. Okay, so the Headliner Nation alerts are showing up, but the donations are not at the bottom. TC, appreciate you helping me try to figure that out. Now I have to figure out what's wrong with it. Okay. Stream might be broken. Ladies and gentlemen, I thought that was another good show today. I think we're probably going to stick to about an hour. I think that is, we talked about it on the other show, like exactly how long these shows will last. I was kind of thinking maybe 2 hours, but the 1 hour mark to me feels really good for 3 topics. It feels really good for 3 topics. And I think if the shows are an hour, I think it's much better for people who want to come back and listen to them as well. Which my hope is that people are coming back and listening to these afterwards. We don't have nearly as many views today as we did last time. But maybe it's something where we maybe try a couple of them at night as well. and see what happens at night. But I think an hour is chef's kiss. We are doing Mondays and Thursdays now. Just because with my schedule and doing off-season content, I felt like giving myself that extra day to record content was probably the best way to do it. So we're going to go Mondays and Thursdays from now on at noon Eastern Standard Time. And from what I've seen so far, we have had some great responses. To the show so far, and I absolutely love that because this is a show that I am excited to do all off season long. Headliner Nation, hopefully you all have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. We're going to come back on Monday at noon with more things to talk about. We'll try to start getting into some other sports as well, just with it kind of being still football-ish season right now. That's going to take up a lot of what we talk about, and we're primarily known as a football channel. Okay. But we'll start jumping into some other sports. I'm really excited for the World Baseball Classic. World Baseball Classic is going to be coming up soon, and I'm excited for that. We're going to have the Olympics, lots of other things too this offseason that we'll dive into and we'll talk a little bit more about. But Headliner Nation, appreciate y'all being here. I want y'all to stay safe. I want y'all to stay healthy. And of course, I want to see you all back on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners. See y'all later.